But that's the way, that's the way the thing went. And we did accomplish the fact that we had a bridgehead across the Rhine River. We as engineers were trying to reinforce that bridge from holes that were put in it and whatever, and we added so much weight to that bridge that it fell of its own accord. And I could have been on there when it went down, but fortunately I was taking over control of the bridge at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. All this happened at 2 minutes of 4.
Well, that was good luck for the Boston Braves. There's no question about that. Buck, tell us about how you got into the service, a couple of your experiences.
Well, in getting into the service after the season 1943, then I went into the service. I could have stayed out of the service, but I had to go. Yeah, I had to go. I was I felt sorry for the people there, and they were so poor. They were so poor, and we would feed them and things like that. And they gave me, one family gave me a necklace. I still got the necklace because they were so poor, and a lot of the servicemen would take advantage of the women for the food. And I couldn't have nothing to do with a woman, you know what I mean? The only reason she's gonna have something to do with me because I fed her. And so actually war is hell, really. Not only for the ones that's fighting it, the ones that you're fighting against. And yeah, but I survived the war and got back. 1946, and didn't hurt me none for going to war, because I think I got a little rest over in the war, because I came back in 1946, I led the league in hitting.
That's great. Tommy, how about you?
Me?
Yeah, how did you go in?
You don't want to talk to me.
Yeah, I want to know how you went in.
Yeah, tell him the story about about the day that you did go in.
Yeah,
this is Tommy's last day.
I was drafted out of Massillon, Ohio, and I want to tell you, I didn't do anything to affect anything. I had 3 brothers that went in the last 2.5 months before me, and the draft board in Massillon, Ohio says, you're next, so I go in. But the date was, I think it was September 1st, and on the last of August, we're playing Detroit in New York. I come up in the late innings, and the loudspeaker system said, attention, this will be Tommy Henrich's last appearance at the plate for the New York Yankees for the duration of the war. Old Genius Krautzer gave me a great big hand, and I was surprised. I back out of there, and I said, yeah, you're fine. And then I go back in, and Dizzy Trout is the pitcher, and I said, come on, let's go. And he says, Tom, enjoy this. He says, this happens once in your lifetime. So, and he kept on going like that, and finally, now we get to play. And like I've told Bob Feller, I said, did you know I was a fastball hitter all this day? He says, certainly I knew that. At any rate, Dizzy Trout is pitching, and I'm so elated about the response here. I says, I got to hit one to the moon. So the first pitch, missed the ball, I don't know, but whatever, missed it. The count got down to 3-2. I already swing a second pitch, nothing. And at 3-2, I said, for crap's sakes, hit the ball someplace. And the next ball comes, another fastball. And I punch a line, good line drive to center field. So I says, I feel fine. But to this moment, I think Dizzy Trout is a great guy for giving me 6 fastballs.
And not throwing you a curve.
That's right. Yeah.
Let me ask our historian here, Bob Linder, about something that Bill Gilbert said earlier, that the president wanted the game to continue because he thought that this was good for the morale of the American people. Is there any evidence to support the fact that did the crowd still turn out? in the same way, despite the fact that many of the stars are gone and not playing?
The crowds turned out. The St. Louis Browns never had much of a crowd before the war and continued in that vein.
Or after.
Yeah, right. But for the most part, the crowds turned out. And it's also in this period that Bill Wrigley invented the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, which is a great page in our history. It lasted not only through the war, but for several years afterwards. And I think it was a tremendous morale booster for the American people. Baseball's greatest role in American history is it's provided stability. It's provided continuity. It's been with us since 1845, and even World War II couldn't stop it. And I think anybody who watches this needs to remember this is history's greatest war. 40 million people dead, and from Buck's remarks, 25 million of those were civilians. 80 million people wounded. And remember, the United States only had a population of 100 million back then, and now we have almost 300 million. So it was a different world in many ways, and the United States took part in this war, and it was an incredibly impressive achievement. And why I'm saying this is, if there are any young people watching, and I teach kids now who only remember the 1990s, you know, the Vietnam's ancient history, let alone World War II. They need to know what happened, and they need to know what men like this did, not only in their baseball careers, which contributed to the stability of this country, but in going out and fighting the war and preserving freedom. That's why this is important.
There's a point too, Gene, building on what Bob just said. The question has been asked over the years, what would these players and the other 500 major league players and the minor leaguers and the Negro leaguers have done if there hadn't been a World War II? You know, does anybody know exactly what they would have, how much greater they would have been? And there are computerized programs, projections, that average out what a player did for his 3 years before the war and 3 years after the war, and from that you establish an annual average. And on that basis, we know now, for example, Bob Feller would have won another 107 games. That would have given him 49 more wins than Nolan Ryan has. He would have struck out another 1,100 hitters. He would have had 5 no-hitters instead of 3, and 19 one-hitters instead of 12. 19 one-hitters. Warren Spahn was a 20-game winner 13 times. He would have done it 15 times if he hadn't had World War II.
No telling how many home runs he would have hit.
That's right. That's right. Tommy Henrik would have hit 63 more home runs. Dom DiMaggio and Cecil Travis would be in the 2000 hit club, 2 great hitters. And so it goes. So this is, you know, they gave up not only years, but they gave up prime years. You know, men in their mid-20s and late 20s.
Bob, did you get a chance to, I know you were on ship a lot of time at sea, but did you get a chance to play any ball at all while you were in?
Gene, I'll answer that in a moment. Now, what the bill was just saying, Bill Gilbert talking about these statistics that a fellow named of Ralph Winnie, who is a member of SABR, Society of American Baseball Research. He was a retired engineer for Boeing in Seattle. He was the chief engineer on the Boeing 747, one of the world's great airplanes. He has this all figured out in a pamphlet, which you've seen. Right. And he also had the 162 games as well as 154, which we used to play. And that's where these, the name of that pamphlet he has is, which I have, in fact, I got it right in my room here in the hotel, What If? And so he has over 100 major league players, including Henrik, and of course, he doesn't have Buck O'Neill, but he's got Warren, who'd won over 400 ball games, and another couple of no-hitters. And as far as the question you just asked me, which I've forgotten, you can ask me again, and I'll give it to you.
Wanted to know whether, despite all the time you spent at sea, you ever got a chance to play any ball while you were in the service.
Oh, yes. Yeah.